This segment will walk you through setting up your quilting frame in king size. There are a few things to keep in mind before you get started. Number 1, it is important that you carefully read each step of the assembly instruction booklet prior to proceeding with that step. 2, gather the tools you will need to complete this assembly. We provide the open wrench and the Allen wrenches. You will need a Phillips screwdriver. If available, a cordless power screwdriver will save you time. It is also a good idea to identify the parts of your frame comparing the box contents with the parts list in your instructions. This will help you get familiar with the various pieces, and you can double-check to make sure all the parts are there. If anything appears to be missing or damaged, contact the Grace Company directly at 1-800-264-0644. After you've taken inventory of your parts and have read Step 1, you'll be ready to begin. First, we'll begin with the outer leg subassembly. First, screw the leveling feet into the ends of the legs. You'll notice that the nut in the end of the leg is at a slight angle. That is important to keep in mind. After completing this for all 4 legs, you will then attach the braces. Lay the 2 leg assemblies down, making sure the 4 holes at the tops of the legs are to the outside or facing away from each other. Connect the middle leg brace to the legs using 4 of the 6mm by 10mm socket button head screws. The holes in the legs are already threaded, so no nuts are necessary. Tighten the screws completely by using the larger 4mm Allen wrench. Now attach the top leg brace to the tops of the legs, again using the 6mm by 10mm screws. Repeat this for the other outer leg subassembly. Now you will assemble the middle leg. Do this by attaching the middle leg brace to the 2 legs just as you did in Step 1. Next, you will install 2 top leg braces to the tops of this leg set. You will do this by using the 6mm by 10mm screws. Be sure the flanged tops of the braces are facing inside toward each other as shown. First, place 2 6 by 35mm hex screws into the take-up fixture as shown. The screw heads will seat inside the countersunk holes in the take-up fixture. Keeping both screws in place, slide the take-up fixture onto the track support extrusion as shown. Slide the fixture until it rests over the slot toward the middle of the extrusion. Now place another 35mm screw through the take-up fixture going the opposite direction as the first screws. Secure it with a plastic knob. Repeat this process for the other frame end. Now you will assemble the frame attaching the 4 track supports to the middle legs and the outer leg assemblies. A second person will be helpful in this step, though one person can do it by picking up one end of the track support and leaning the outer leg subassembly toward it as shown. Be sure the flanged top leg braces are toward the inside of the frame. Place 2 10mm screws through the holes at the end of the track supports and screw them into the 2 corresponding holes at the end of the outer legs as shown. Tighten these screws using the larger Allen wrench and repeat for the other track support and leg. With one side complete, attach the other end of the track supports to the middle leg subassembly, securing them to the 2 holes on the near side of the assembly. Again, use the 10mm screws and tighten completely. Now you will attach the left and right frame ends to the frame assembly. Hold the right frame end to the frame assembly with the 2 bolts pointing away from the frame. Place 2 longer 12mm screws through the right frame corner, through the right frame end, and into the threaded holes of the outer legs. Next, place 2 shorter 10mm screws through the 2 middle holes of the frame end and into the threaded holes of the other outer leg. Tighten these screws completely. Now repeat this process for the left frame end. Attach all 6 table braces to the frame assembly by threading smaller 5mm by 10mm screws through the holes in the track supports and into the holes in each end of the braces. Note that the braces are attached to the bottom side of the track support flange with the double-sided tape on the table braces facing up. Next, remove the tape backing on the braces and on the track supports. Prepare to place the table surfaces onto the frame assembly by identifying the top of the table surface, which is the textured surface. Also be sure the slots in the surfaces are toward the back of the frame, when placed on the frame. The front of the frame is the end with the left and right frame ends sticking out beyond the frame. Press the table surfaces down along the track support flanges to ensure a proper adherence to the tape. Now you will install your two longer 120-inch plastic tracks into the track supports. Start the track into the support by angling the end of the track into the slot. Once started, press the track down into the slot using your palm, while using your other hand to line up the track with the support as you go. Repeat this process for both tracks. Now you will assemble your plastic mounts to the frame ends. First, it is important to note the difference between the left and right take-up mounts. The right take-up mount has a ratcheting lever to enable tension on your quilt. The left take-up mount does not have this piece. You will attach the right mounts on the right end as you stand at the front of your frame. First, attach the take-up mount to the screws in the take-up fixtures with the rough side facing in. Thread two plastic knobs onto the screws and tighten. Do this for both take-up mounts. Now you will attach the front rail mounts. First, you must remove the 4 pre-installed screws using your Allen wrench. Next, attach the fourth rail mounts to the frame ends using 3 6mm by 10mm screws as shown. Line the mount over the 3 holes in the end, and with the screws coming from the inside of the frame, thread them into the plastic mount piece. Tighten these completely using the larger Allen wrenches. Repeat this for both fourth rail mounts. Finally, attach the front rail mounts at the 4 end holes of the frame end. Do this threading 4 10mm screws, again from the inside of the frame, into the mounts. Tighten completely and repeat for both frame ends. You will notice that you have a set of rails that are a smaller 1.5-inch diameter. The other 3 sets are 2-inch diameter. The smaller diameter rails are referred to as the take-up rail. This rail will go through the throat of your sewing machine. We've designed it slightly smaller so as not to take up excessive throat space, thus preserving more work area without compromising the strength of the rail. Assemble the 1.5-inch rail set first. Do this by sliding the smaller 1.5-inch coupler into the ends of the 2 smaller rails, creating one continuous piece. With the holes lined up, thread 5mm by 10mm screws into each hole. There are 12 in all. Tighten these completely using the smaller 3mm Allen wrench. Now attach the 3 sets of 2-inch rails in the same manner. Next, you will attach the ratchet wheels. Start with the smaller 1.5-inch rail first. Slide a ratchet wheel onto each end of the rail until you can see the entire hole containing the pre-installed square nut. Thread a smaller 5mm by 16mm screw into all 3 holes of the ratchets and into the rails. Tighten these screws using a smaller 3mm Allen wrench. Do not over-tighten, however, as this will cause the ratchet not to sit evenly inside the rail. This process is similar for the 2-inch diameter rails, except the ratchet wheels slide inside these rails. Place screws into the rail holes and ratchets and tighten using the smaller Allen wrench. Now you will attach your rails to the frame. Begin with the smaller 1.5-inch rail by placing one end into the opening at the top of the take-up rail mount. The rail will snap into place once you press it in past the ratchet keeps. Without allowing the other end to sag, place the other end into the opposite mount. Repeat this process for the 3 2-inch rails. With your frame assembled, you will now turn your attention to the sewing machine carriage. First, you will assemble the top plate. Begin by identifying the left and right handle tubes. First, attach the left handle by threading a 6mm by 10mm screw through each hole at the base of the handle and into the threaded plate. Tighten these screws completely. Now repeat this process for the right handle tube. Next, fasten the handle brace to the 2 handle tubes. Place a 6mm nut on the inside of the brace as shown. Thread a 6mm by 40mm screw into the hole in the brace and through the tube, then going through into the nut. Use the larger Allen wrench to tighten the screw. Repeat this process for the other side. With the handles in place, you will now assemble your cam clamps by lifting the cam handle and sliding the clamp into the slot. Repeat this for all 4 slots. To assemble the bottom plate, first push 2 end cap A's into opposing corners of the bottom plate. Make sure they seat completely into the extrusions. Do the same for the end cap B's in the 2 remaining corners. Next, remove the tape backing from the tape attached to the bottom plate flanges and apply the bottom plate platform. Press firmly down on the edges until the platform has completely adhered into place. You will now place your bottom plate onto the tracks of your frame. Do so by making sure the black plastic track goes into the grooves of the plate wheels. If placed correctly, the bottom plate should move with minimal resistance along the track. Do the same for the top plate, ensuring that all 4 wheels are making contact with the track on top of the bottom plate. Next, you will place your sewing machine onto the top plate. First, remove the take-up rail and move the carriage to one end of the frame. Center the machine from side to side and from front to back. You will lock your machine into position by applying 4 cam clamps to the top plate and machine. First, pull the cam clamp handle to the open position and slide it into the slot of the top plate. Push the clamp up against the machine and push the cam clamp handle down to lock it into place. Repeat this for the other 3 cam clamps. You will now reinstall your take-up rail by placing the rail through the throat of your machine and back into the take-up rail mounts. You will now observe the level of your frame. Place your machine carriage at various points along the length of the frame. See if it travels by itself either front to back or side to side. If it does, you'll need to adjust the feet until the carriage is stationary when left alone. Finally, we'll show you how to install the 4 bungee clamps to your frame. Push the end of the bungee cord through the hole located on the side of each take-up rail mount. Continue to pull the bungee cord through until the clamp is pulled up to the mount. Cinch the bungee cord into the cord holder to lock it into place. When the fabric is installed, you'll use the clamp to apply side tension to your quilt.